I am the director.
Damn, that's...
I knew an old guy that used to do that.
My name's Cletus.
You think the cows are getting drunk off the hops?
They don't really like...
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm here with Ryan. We're back here in Portland, and we're working up here at Mount Hood. So this is owned by Timberline Lodge. We're working at their brewery, and it's going to be pretty exciting today. So we're working on where the hops are boiled, and then the water is released, and it goes through the piping. And so the piping is getting so hot that it's actually melting. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put a different kind of piping in. It's CPVC, and it's rated for higher heat, so it's not going to melt anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to assess the situation. We're going to go walk through the project, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to figure out how we're going to replace the piping, and we're going to put it in a better way so that it's not going to melt and that everything's going to work the way that it should without any leaks. So look, come on, let's go check it out. All right, so here we are at the brewery. This is pretty fascinating. Inside, they have this specialty valve, and this is a separator. And so this separates the water from the oil, and some of the hops comes down through this tube, and then they store it in here because a lot of those oils and things are very important. So this is where the operation starts, up here. This is pretty fascinating. This is where the hops are brewed, up in this area. And so as we have the floor drain that we're going to be working on right here, and then we have another one on the other side underneath this tank, and we're going to replace all of this with CPVC because it's existing right now with ABS, and that's the part that is melting. So we're going to relocate that valve. Sorry for the camera movement here. We're going to relocate that valve to a better location, and we're going to replace all of the piping that goes into it with the new CPVC so it doesn't melt. So we'll keep you posted here. So we're making access because we have to get to the existing lines. Here was that valve that we took out, and Ryan's cutting open the ceiling. The ceiling's been leaking debris from the pipes for a while now. So as you can see, it's all blackened and pretty gross looking because those pipes have been leaking for a while now. So we're making the hole here, getting access to the floor drain that's above, and that's where we're going to tie on. So we've got a floor drain. That's exactly where they dump the tanks with the hot water from the hops that they're boiling. And then there's another one on this side. We get a better view as we climb the ladder. When we go up, we can see exactly where the floor comes down and where those floor drains are in relation to where we have to tie into the plumbing, which is pretty awesome. So there's that floor drain that we're exposing right now. And then the other floor drain is underneath this kettle, and that's on the other side of the wall, which we're gonna go check it out here in just a second. So here we are. This is the valve that we're gonna mount first. This is the transfer valve, or this is the separator that separates the oils. And so this is the ABS pipe which was leaking. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this off here. We're going to use this drill and this special bit that I've got right here. We're going to drill out this because we want to glue in the CPVC and get rid of this old piping, which is ABS, which is not rated for the high temperature that we have discharging through those pipes. Almost there. So what we've done is we've drilled this out, just got a little bit left on that inner rim. This is going to be the new pipe that we're going to have. It's going to glue in this. This is going to be the CPVC. So we're drilling out the old ABS in here. So just have a little bit left on this. Okay guys, so what's going on here is we're getting ready to glue this fittings together. So this is the floor drain that we tied onto the kettles upstairs. When they dump the water, it's boiling water, it comes down this drain. And so we're tying it in to what's going to be a Y fitting right here that's going to go through that. That's our hanger support. 45 into a 90 on a 45 into this valve here. This is the separation valve. And this is going to go around to the other side where it's going to tie into the waste for the building. So Ryan's gluing this up. We're getting ready to right now. Here we go.
I'm gonna glue this. I'm gonna get this piece cut first.
All right, perfect. Okay, so here we are. This is the transition valve. That's the separator. And then we're going to come through this line. This one connects up, goes to the first floor drain. And on the other side of this wall, we have the second floor drain. And so we have to drill with this guy through that wall. And so that's what we're going to do here in just 2 seconds. All right, so we just drilled the hole with this beast. Look at this guy. It's a big ass drill. Look what we did. Straight through that wall. So we're in business. Right on the other side is that floor drain that goes up to the second kettle that we're going to be hooking up for the drain. All right, so we drilled the hole. We just stuffed the pipe through.
I love it when a plan comes together.
That was a good show. The A-Team, remember that?
That's what I named the A-Team.
This is how you glue a joint. Primer first, both sides, and then apply the glue. The primer softens the pipe, so it's actually not glue when it's done, it's actually a weld, because the primer softens it to the point when you adhere the glue that it actually welds it together. And that's it. I knew an old guy that used to do that. I knew an old guy that used
With
to
the copper.
Yeah. And then of course we'll straighten that valve out. It's got unions on either side so it'll flip up. And then that drain, the floor drain on the other side for the second kettle is just on the other side of that wall which we drilled through, and that pipe extends about 3 feet on the other side. We'll go check that out in a second. Okay guys, so here we are. We just got the second drain hooked up. I don't know if you can see it up there at the very top. So it's all glued in and then it's strapped. Goes through the wall here. Comes around on the other side. So the other side of that wall. Right there. Comes across into that Y. It's the other floor drain, which is the second place where it dumps down that drain for the kettle. And then it goes into here to the transfer valve where it separates the grain and any of the oil. And then now it's going to come around the corner. It's going to tie into that square, which we're going to open up that wall, and we're going to make a little bit bigger area to work in. And then this is going to tie into the drain line, which goes into the sewer. And that's what we've got so far.
My name's Cletus.
All right, so we just finished. We got the last connection right here. Goes right into this with what's called transition glue, which is the old ABS going to the CPVC, and then it comes across here around the corner, goes into this valve right here. That's the separator valve. 90-45 Y 90 up into the first floor drain, which is the first kettle above. This goes through the wall here, and then that goes to the second floor drain, which is where the other kettle is on the other side. It comes through that wall and then up. What we deleted was this old section here, and you can see where it had been leaking for a very long time. And all of that is dry rot. You can see the old line that's up there. All of this is in really, really bad condition because it had been leaking for a very, very long time. So with this new pipe, we won't have any of the old issues. And so all of this stuff in here that has got dry rot, it's gonna have to get ripped out, and that's gonna have to get remediated. So, but this is the new line, so no more problems, and the hose is gonna connect into that, which is gonna go into a 50-gallon barrel, and that's where they have the separation on everything. So, good job.
Hey, I'm Tom Kowski, one of 2 brewers here at Mount Hood Brewing. Even though I have a Laurelwood Brewing Company sweatshirt on currently. RIP. In any case, going over a little bit of the brewing process, everything starts basically with water. Beer is 95% water, essentially. We have 2 vessels here. This is an older brew house from 1991. It is a 10-barrel brew house. 1 barrel equals, it's a 31 gallons is 1 barrel. So essentially for each batch, we're doing right around, in the end, right around 400 gallons. But the process itself, via this line right here, we bring up from a mill downstairs. So the night before, we will mill our grain, which is malted barley, oats, wheat, depending on what beer we're making. And via this auger, once it's already milled, it goes into a grist bin downstairs, and up this auger into our mash tun. This is a hydrator up here, so while the grain is going in, it's also being hydrated with the water right around 160-ish degrees, depending on the beer we're making. It hydrates in there, drops into the mash tun. This process takes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, again, depending on how much material we're using, how much we milled in. And the purpose of the mash tun is all that water and all that grain is mixing. We want to extract the sugar and all the good stuff that will then be made into alcohol by yeast. I'll get there in a second. So mash tun fills, we let it rest there for about 30 minutes. Again, depending on what we're doing, we will recirculate that to kind of set that grain bed, let everything compact and settle in, and filter all that water through that grain. It ends up smelling a lot like cereal in here. It's very, very sweet. And what we're doing is producing something called wort. So wort will then become beer, but it's said that, the brewers make wort, yeast makes beer, because you need fermentation to make alcohol. So once this entire process is kind of settled in, then we trickle water over the top of it and simultaneously run it through this grant. At that point, all the grain is separated out, because in the bottom of this is a large screen. So we're taking all that liquid, all that sugary goodness, running it through our grant and into our kettle. Again, this will be around 400 gallons in the end. While this kettle is filling, at a certain point, I have a burner. It's a gas fed system. So we kick on the burner, and while it's filling, it's also heating up. Again, just liquid, all the grain stays behind. That's the purpose of the separation. And we'll get to right around 15 barrels. And we hit boil. We call boil at 212, 213. And we will boil typically an hour. Some beers depending on the recipe and the type of malt we were using, we'll go like 90 minutes.
Okay.
During that process is when the hops are added. So initially, once I hit boil, I will add a bittering hop. That's where you get, the bitterness on the tongue, and anything I add later in the boil essentially becomes more of an aroma. That's a smell, and you can play with recipes in that way.
Is that the different kinds that you have there?
So this is the malt actually that would start from. This is what gets milled, and this is what gets mixed with water. And we have several different kinds of malt. For example, that one is like a roasted chocolate malt. So there's a whole other world of malting in general, and the longer something roasts, the more character you're getting out of it. So like a stout is going to have something like this. Lighter stuff, pilsners, bonds, ales. It's basically cooking, So these are the ingredients we start with. So you get malt, hops, water, and yeast are exactly what makes beer in the end. So all throughout the 60 or 90 minutes that this is boiling, I'll add all my hops. We then circulate this tank called whirlpool. Oftentimes breweries will have a whole nother tank that's specifically for whirlpool. So you would finish boiling, and then you would send it to another tank where it spins. You could add more hops in that process as well. We do it all in this tank. So we boil and whirlpool, get everything mixed up, and the purpose of that mixing is then all those hops that we've thrown in, any protein left over will all come to the center and fall out. So it all goes to the bottom at that point. And that bucket that you saw downstairs, that side stream bucket, is that. We don't want that in the beer. We don't want any of that green matter, that solid matter in the beer.
Right.
So we whirlpool it, get it to just calm down, settle down, and then we start pumping this entire tank into fermentation downstairs, which is when we add our yeast. So as it's being pumped downstairs, it's also being cooled. We cool in right around 68 degrees, so we're going from 200 plus to 68 degrees between here and the tank downstairs. We use a specific system for cooling to do that, but we can't add yeast when it's too hot. It'll kill the yeast, and fermentation won't happen. So we add yeast into the fermentation tank. This gets pumped in, and depending on the beer, a couple weeks, usually on ales, longer on lagers, a month plus, depending on what we're doing.
Wow, I didn't realize it took that long to make beer.
Yeah, but most of the ales that we do, like our typical IPA, we can turn around in a couple of weeks. We're also adding hops during that process of fermentation. It's called dry hopping, depending on the beer. Like IPAs get dry hopped. It all depends on style. But that's kind of the process between the brewing, and then once you have that yeast, is that yeast is consuming all that sugar that we've got now, right? And in the process of consuming that sugar, it's producing not only CO2, but it's producing alcohol.
Wow.
So, and that's where you get beer.
That's where we get beer.
Yeah, and we have a scale of where the amount of sugar we have in relation to where it ends and how much the yeast has consumed is your ABV in the end. So there's a scale where we use for that. But
that's awesome.
So that side stream process, those oils that are left in here. I mean, the oils will end up in the beer. We want the oils, but we don't want that green matter. So it gets all the liquid gets drained, and then anything left behind will go into those totes that we have, and those will eventually go to farms and be used as like a fertilizer.
Wow.
All the grain that's left behind in the mash tun, once all the liquid is drained from that and boiled, we dig all that grain out, and we send that to the local farmer. Comes up and picks that up and feeds his cows. So try to reuse as much as possible, but the idea of that side streaming is really essential because we process all of our own wastewater. If we could separate a lot of the solids before we even get to our wastewater system, everything would be clean.
So do you think the cows are getting drunk off the hops?
They don't really like the hops themselves. The spent grain, there's still some sugar in there, but there's no alcohol whatsoever. Yeah. There's enough to be nutritious for them, but we've taken everything we can out of it. That's the idea. You get as much out of it to then making beer.
Those poor cows.
Nope.
No beer for them.
They come running.
Hey guys, we just finished up and we're having some lunch. Ryan's got a pulled pork sandwich and I've got myself a cheeseburger from the brew pub here. They offered to give us a bunch of beer, but I think we're going to take that for a later time. So, because we're driving still. But the job turned out really well and food's absolutely amazing. So, if you haven't been to the brew pub, Mountain Hood Brew Pub, you should definitely come because it's worth it. It's awesome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.